rolling tumors to roaring lampooners, the Tigers on a Roll show starts in 3, 2, 1.
War Eagle, everyone, and welcome back to Tigers on a Roll. We are a little bit off of schedule with the Tigers on a Prowl segment, which usually comes out Sunday night or Monday morning. And we are already in the middle of a relatively busy week for Auburn Athletics, given the transition between our fall and spring sports. But we've got a massive road win to recap for the women's basketball team and a preview of probably the biggest non-conference matchup of the remaining schedule for the men's basketball team. And I don't know if you guys know this, but we brought home some serious hardware from the USA Nationals Championship for the dive team. We had a couple divers representing the Tigers out there, and we will get into that at the end of the show. But let's tip things off with the women's basketball team, who have handled business up in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The Tigers went up to the Murphy Center and walked out with a 68-52 victory, snapping a ugly 3-game losing streak. They had, over the last couple weeks, they had dropped games to Oregon, Syracuse, and Seton Hall. Close one there in Seton Hall, but they couldn't pull it off. And Coach Vickers had been preaching putting the clamps on opponents early. They've found success with that so far this season, and they held the Blue Raiders at home to just 15 points in the entire first half. Offensively, if you're following or if you're watching this to get up to speed, we saw some fresh faces step up for the Lady Tigers. Kolulabi was fantastic in her first start for the Tigers. She led the way in scoring with 16 points. And then Sarah Daniels matched her career high. And the sophomore got 14 points on the day, including 3 triples. So shout out to the two of them leading the way for the Tigers and getting the women's basketball team back in the win column. And not unlike the men's team, when the depth chart steps up like that, your team can be dangerous. And the women's basketball team can certainly be very dangerous. And all we want to do is see them, both basketball teams, step up in that way and end up in the postseason. That would be absolutely outstanding for Auburn, and we always like to see those Tigers on a roll specifically. And the ladies basketball team will have a very quick turnaround. They are back at Neville Arena tomorrow night, which is Thursday the 18th. They're hosting Alcorn State for the Plains Holiday Classic. Tip-off in Neville is going to be at 6 p.m. Central. And it is a great chance for them to get another W before conference play heats up. I believe you can watch that game on SEC Network, or if you're around Auburn, you can grab tickets right now for $8 if you get the advanced general admission. My opinion on that is, whether or not you like women's basketball, any chance to get a seat in Neville Arena is one that you should absolutely take. And for $8, that is a steal. As everyone starts taking their breaks for the holiday, go check them out. And we'll look forward to that game. And we previewed the men's game yesterday, but we're going to take a look at it again because it is the main event of the weekend. We are getting into a little bit of a dead period here on sporting events, but this one is huge. The 21 Auburn Tigers are heading north to Indianapolis to take on the 6th-ranked Purdue Boilermakers in the Indy Classic. And this is another huge test for Stephen Pearl. The non-conference slate has been absolutely brutal to the Tigers. They played Houston, Michigan, Arizona, but this is the kind of game that you absolutely need to win to build your resume for March, especially after dropping a couple of those games in Vegas. This one against Purdue, if you do win it, would be a quad 1 win if the Tigers can pull it off. which if you remember yesterday, I don't think that we're going to, but it would be huge. And stacking up quad one wins is one of the best ways to get yourself seated nicely in March. And for those that don't know, because this came up in conversations over the weekend about how do you calculate quad one wins and things like that, or what quad is your win in. Generally, a win at home against a top 25 net ranked team or a win on the road against a top 70 net ranked team will get you a quad one win. And we are obviously at Purdue, and Purdue is sitting in the 9th spot in the latest net ranking. So we definitely need this one to stay in the mix. We need to get these non-con games won because the SEC is going to be an absolutely brutal run for the next couple months until we figure out whether or not the Tigers are going to go play in March, which obviously I assume they will. But if you watched the show when we previewed the basketball season, we're not really on track for what I thought we were going to look like. And we need to pull off some of those toss-up games in the SEC schedule to get some of these. The good thing is a lot of them are going to be really quality wins for the Tigers. And on Saturday, the players that I will be watching are the usual suspects, but that is the name of the game in basketball when you have so few guys on the roster to begin with. Starting off with Tahad Pettiford, whose play has been okay, averaging over 20 points in the last 6 games, but it has not translated to wins. And if you watched, I believe it was the post-game presser after the Michigan game, he did not care how well he played. They did not win. And his play has not translated to wins just yet or on a regular basis, but he is still absolutely electric. He is still as fast as can be, has a crazy vertical, and Pearl needs him against Purdue to control the tempo and to control the ball. We have got to minimize turnovers because teams have been scoring points against us off the turnover since Oklahoma State. So Purdue is a very, very disciplined basketball team, and Tahad is going to be the one that starts all of our possessions, essentially. He is going to need to continue to play at a high level and hope and pray and try his damnedest to have those games turn in and translate to wins. And then, of course, as everyone already knows, Kevin Overton and Keyshawn Murphy look to have settled in quite nicely. There was a lot of discourse early in the season, especially from, my opinion on it, was putting a team like this together after losing, such a cohesive unit last year for many reasons, mostly the draft. Or aging out, but these guys gelling was a big point of contention early in the season, and it seems to me, even with a lot of these losses, they have gelled nicely. A lot of these guys are getting settled in. They are playing a little bit better together, but the game scripts have just not been going our way. Like I said, especially in Vegas, and Keyshawn and Kevin are going to need to play at an elite level against, a high-ranked team in an NBA arena. There's no question about that. We need them to reach an elite level of play, and for that matter, we need all of our starters to be reaching that elite level, and they need to start peaking as soon as possible, and even take some of those guys off the bench and expect them to get it done, or else we're kind of just spinning our wheels for 40 minutes, which you do not want to see that over the next 3 or 4 months. That would be atrocious, and that is not the type of ball that we are used to watching at Auburn over the last few seasons. Obviously, news is already out there. I covered it yesterday. We're going to be without Emeka Oporum for the rest of the season. He is our only true center. And that is a huge blow to our front court, especially going up against a big physical team in the Big Ten like Purdue. That's just kind of the ball they play, and Auburn's going to need to adjust to it and figure out how to make that speed, execute on that speed, and not have to rely on size like we had been the last few seasons. You got to figure out how to plug in the next man up on this thing. And Stephen Pearl probably can figure it out. I do have faith in him, but dropping some of those games to, teams that right now are ranked in the top 10. So, you can't really expect that. That's pretty much just chalk. But Stephen Pearl is going to need to figure out how to get these next few guys in the rotation up and playing at a higher level, and figure out how to execute and capitalize on our speed and our deep shooting, as opposed to just trying to body people. Because if we go, hat on a hat, we are going to get outmatched in height and weight, and that is just not a recipe to go deep into March. That Auburn game against Purdue, you can find that one on Peacock, unfortunately, on Saturday at 5:30 Central. Make sure that your subscriptions are active. This is going to be another game that is going to be a little bit more difficult to access. If you pirate games regularly, or you don't usually watch streaming events, go make sure that your Peacock is set up, because everyone has had some issues getting on those apps. Or, when the game in Birmingham was on War Eagle Plus, there was quite an outrage there, because it was basically a private showing. So go check on your Peacock subscriptions, or, if you're in the area, if you're from the Nof, go see if you can get some tickets to that game. Tickets are pretty expensive right now, but, that is a huge matchup. That's a marquee matchup. So go out and see your Tigers play, whether it be in person or on Peacock on Saturday. And this is going to be a quick show today. Like I said, not a lot going on. So before we get out of here, I do want to remind everyone, I love the big three sports. Everyone does. They're the money makers. They're electric. They're the most competitive. They're the most easily accessible, yada, yada, yada. But I started this channel to talk about as many Auburn sports as we can, including club sports, and you'll see that in the spring, because there are plenty of Tigers out there rolling through seasons in various sports, and I think that they deserve the respect that we give every other major sport that, we watch on TV, or we go to the stadium and we watch those guys play, those gals play, and we support them. I think we should be supporting all of our sports. Obviously, if they've got the logo on their chest and they're wearing the orange and blue, we're going to cover them. And I hope that it develops some interest to start having some folks follow them a little bit more closely. This one is niche, no doubt about it. But we have some hardware coming back to the Plains from the 2025 USA Diving Winter Nationals. And Auburn was out in Midland, Texas competing. And I put Auburn in quotes there because if you don't know, our athletes compete at various age groups by way of the War Eagle Dive Club. Our Tigers, which one of them's 13, our Tigers compete for the dive club instead of Auburn University, especially at events like this, because the Winter Nationals is a USA diving sanctioned event, not an NCAA meet. So because it's the national governing body for the sport and the pipeline to the Olympics, athletes compete with these registered clubs at these events. So the War Eagle Dive Club is the organization that operates out of the James E. Martin Aquatic Center, and they're still coached by John Fox and his whole staff. They just have access to non-students, essentially. And we sent 2 divers up to the Winter Nationals. One of them is Talan Blackmon, who you're probably familiar with. He is a junior at Auburn. And then ElliReese Niday is the 13-year-old. And they suited up for nationals, and they represented the War Eagle Dive Club to earn those national ranking points outside of their NCAA obligations, at least for Talan. And it keeps them eligible for the Olympic trials and allows them to compete against obviously the best in the country, because we are not the only school that does it. And that includes, pro level divers, top tier juniors, and what have you, but it does not count against their NCAA competition limits. So when you see the War Eagle Dive Club at the top of the podium, just know those are current and potentially future Auburn Tigers doing big things. And they definitely did big things last week. They're going to get a huge shout out from Tigers on a Roll here. Junior Talan Blackmon and a local 13-year-old phenom, ElliReese Niday. ElliReese herself dominated. She was in the women's 10-meter platform dive, and she put up a score of 754.85. And she took home the gold medal. She beat the runner-up by over 100 dang points. And then Talan Blackmon, he's found success at Auburn in his years on campus. He didn't find the same success, but he was able to finish 4th in 4 of 6 events that he entered. So congrats to Talan for representing, and a huge War Eagle to ElliReese on that national championship. And if you saw the photos of them afterwards, you had, I believe it was an Indiana diver on one side, a Texas diver on the other, and they were in their collegiate gear, team issued gear, and she was wearing all of her Olympic, like USA national team Olympic gear, which was pretty awesome to see. And she was affiliated with the War Eagle Dive Club. And that is going to put wraps on the show. Like I said, it is going to be a quick one. That'll be it for Tigers on a Prowl segment for this week. By the way, we usually post these. I usually post these early in the week. So don't expect it to often be on a Wednesday, but we are just catching up on everything going on now that we are back in the studio. And so to the women's basketball team, go out there and beat Alcorn State. That is tomorrow night. And let's go shock the world in Indy on Saturday. And not going to do an ad read either because it is a short show. Thank you for being in the chat over here on Twitch. That'll be it. But I don't charge for any info, any extra info, extra access, yada, yada, yada. I just love the damn Auburn Tigers. And I like to give everyone just a little bit more to talk about every day and keep you updated. So please make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to watch this live, it is live on Twitch. No real schedule though. Don't worry about that. Go ahead and like, subscribe, share the video on YouTube. I really appreciate the growth that I've had over the last month or so. And it is a great outlet and forum for myself and obviously a lot of like-minded and sometimes in the comments, not like-minded folks. But yeah, tell your friends. Find me over on X also at TigersOnARoll. I am basically on that 24/7. Notifications right to the phone. So keep the conversations going over there as well. And until next time, folks, War Damn Eagle, and I'll see you.